you're watching this video and you're not going the typical path of college, you get a degree, you work a 9 to 5, and you don't want that for yourself, then this video is going to be extremely informational and beneficial. And it's honestly going to be a perspective shift. So I recommend you watch all the way through. It's not going to be a long one. I'm going to break down step by step the skills you need to be acquiring, the daily things you need to be doing. Not that I'm perfect, but the things that I'm incorporating and I'm learning to develop and get better with each and every single day to set up myself for success, in the future. Now, I just want to briefly talk about where I was when I started this entrepreneurial journey. And yes, this is a fitness channel, but I also love talking business. I love just the personal development aspect of it. And so that's why I'm going on all these rants. And I get a lot of questions from other people. How are you scaling your business? How do you do coaching? How do you do X, Y, Z? How do you get into online stuff? Like, how do you work remotely? And I want to break it all down. But before going into that, again, what is my story now? I'm not going to go like all the ins and outs. You can go on my Instagram, check out like my third pinned post and scroll through. There's a bunch of stuff there about like the stuff that, propelled me into the position I'm in today. But long story short, I always worked a bunch of in-person jobs. When I say in-person, I never had the freedom to work remotely. I always felt capped from my income. I always felt like I didn't have, number one, the skill sets, but number two, even the awareness that I was lacking those skill sets to be successful. Third and final thing is I didn't have any structure, any plan, I didn't know what to do. Long story short, I hired a mentor. I paid thousands of dollars. Then that leached into, one of his other coaches. I invested into his mentorship, and then I invested into a different mentor I found. And I've had this person, that person help me. And what I'm getting at is I did not know what the outcome was. I didn't know what the, guarantee was, because essentially there wasn't one. The only guarantee was that I was not going to quit, and I was going to figure out a way to make money online, to have a successful business, to achieve my ideal physique, to help men achieve the right mindset, stronger faith, the right belief systems, the right identity to be successful, not just with their fitness, their physique, their money, their career, but like in every aspect of life, because fitness truly carries over into every other part of your life. So I didn't really have this path of like, you go to college, as long as I complete my 4 years, I'm going to get a certificate. As long as I have above whatever it is, a 3.0 GPA or whatever schools require. And then from there, it's okay, I have a degree, I'm going to guaranteed get a job. And then from there, yada, yada, yada. I'm going to guarantee get a mortgage, etc. For me, it wasn't this thing where like I'm going into online coaching specifically, or in general, just the online business space. It wasn't this thing where I was like, okay, I'm just going to get into this. And once I get into this, I'm going to now have stable consistency with my income. Like, no, bro, it's like you, number one, aren't just lacking. Like you're not getting, money handed to you. You have to do the business and the money generating activities essentially to transition the business forward. Not just that, you also probably don't have any credibility or trust in the market yet, so you need to work on these things. But the actual skill sets, like now that I've talked about like my story that I started to really master and hone in on, I'm gonna probably name like 4. I might go overboard, but we'll see. First and foremost is gonna be communication. And when I say communication, it's not just public speaking, like yes, that's important, but speaking to the different levels of people and where they're at in their journey. Some people are 50 to 60 pounds overweight that I've talked with that are really struggling mentally, emotionally. They don't have the support system around them, and they're essentially in this hamster wheel where they've been in this cycle for years on end, or maybe even decades. This is where a lot of people I speak with fall into the bucket of. So I need to figure out like how to actually get these people to make that change that they want to make, with their own life. And by portraying different messages across my content, things like work hard, be consistent, take action, don't be lazy, but most importantly, like literally just get the help you're needing. That oftentimes allows these people to get over the fence and make that uncomfortable change that they need to be making to achieve the results they're looking for. The next thing, and obviously that's one side of the spectrum. The other side of the spectrum is the person that they're motivated, they're confident. I've had a lot of these clients too, where they're motivated, they're clients, they're coming in, they're ready to crush it. And we just need to optimize things on a strategical level. So they had the mindset portion there, but they didn't have all the tactical, the strategical, nutrition, training, recovery, etc., supplementation, etc. But they at least had that driving force versus the other people, they weren't motivated. They weren't, the person that was going to lead themselves. So they needed somebody to do that for them, or in a community essentially. But they did have that problem that they were very aware about. And like most people don't even have that general awareness around their problems. So those are the 2 buckets I find a lot of people in. Now, there's obviously ins and outs and a lot of different variations, but it's like you need to understand how to communicate with people and not just talk with them, but like literally get your message across. One of my mentors used the word brevity, which for me, I used to be an over talker. I still at times go on rants, but essentially brevity is like, putting across, in my own words, is the definition. It's putting across the most concise, clear manner in the shortest amount of words. So this way you can say more with less and get more of your messages across. And for me, that's one thing I really had to hone in on, because I used to go on these coaching calls with people and I would just go on, talking sprees of like why they should be motivated. And then I realized after backtracking, although that was beneficial, what was even better for that client was saying less, asking better questions, getting them to uncover the real answers so that, they could be successful. And for me, that's when like I really started to dive into the psychology of, number one, how people make decisions, and number two, why people are so in their comfort zone and stuck in that box for so long. And again, it all comes down to identity. I talk about this all the time. If you identify yourself as an overweight person, you're going to stay overweight. If you identify yourself as an alcoholic, you're going to constantly crave that alcohol or not be able to trust yourself going near alcohol, right? So you have to understand, guys, watching that, like the labels we put on ourselves, that holds true to the identity we believe ourselves to have. If we label ourselves as such, that means we truly deep down believe we are that person. However, if you're a fat person, the easiest way, and I was having some like reflection last time in my late night walk about this, not this specific scenario, but like as an example, if you're an overweight person, the longer you identify as an overweight person, the more you're going to take these overweight actions, eating more food, not exercising, etc. But most importantly, like having the mindset of I'm fat, I'm overweight, which is putting you into a victim mindset state. I can't do anything about this. There's nothing I can do to control this. This is my genetics, etc. And like I know people that have been 300 plus pounds that have gotten down to 180, 190. I know people that have made even better transformations than that, like from social media, etc. So it really is possible. It just comes down to like the way you're perceiving yourself. And if you perceive yourself the opposite, like maybe you are that fat person, but you're perceiving yourself as, and let me just be straight up, like I by no means am trying to like rub feathers the wrong way, but if you are overweight, like you are fat. Now, I'm not saying that to degrade you. I'm saying that because it's like, that is the fact. And like most people don't want to hear that. But if you know that, okay, I'm fat, I'm overweight. Now I don't want to be this way anymore. I want to be thin, skinny, or maybe muscular, etc. You need to stop identifying as that fat person, right? That's a big thing, really. And obviously we can go on a whole bunch of rabbit holes about that. But identity is the big thing, really. And like, so communication, like that's the number one facet that you need to develop. And by no means am I saying I'm perfect with any of these things. I've come a long way, but I also have a long way to go. Remember when I was a kid, there were times where like I would stutter, I would mumble, I would say things too fast, or I would not be able to get across the messages I want to get across. Nowadays, I'm a lot more sharp and on point, but at the same time, there's so much growth and so many things that I'm learning because I'm constantly, essentially reiterating, right? Like my coaching calls, the questions I'm asking, I'm rewatching these, making sure that I'm helping the person the best to my ability, and I'm getting across that brevity without having to use a plethora of words. And so for me, after focusing on communication, the next thing I would recommend you also work on, in addition to that, is going to be out of the box thinking. When I say out of the box thinking, what I mean really is creativity. When you work a 9-to-5 job or any job where there's security, where they're paying you, as long as you're showing up, right? Even if, like, let's say you're not doing the job, as long as you're clocked in or you're on, contract salary or whatever, you're going to at least get paid. You might not do a good job right away. They might fire you right away, but you're at least guaranteed that pay. So everybody that's working a job has that level of security of, okay, this is a guarantee. The thing with entrepreneurship is like, you never know when you're going to have your biggest month. I mean, yeah, you can probably foresee these things coming, but you're never going to know like what's guaranteed and what's going to happen. Even if you have, let's say funds set to be paid out, they might not pull through, right? So it's like, there's a lot of different things really with entrepreneurship that are scary, that are risky, that most people don't bet on themselves and take that risk for. But that's the second thing, is like getting out of the box and thinking more creatively. If you start to think of yourself as like, okay, I'm this person that has these skill sets. Like what can I do to make this business profitable? You're going to eventually have ideas come to you, especially when you need something bad enough or when you're in a tight enough position. Let's say you don't know how you're going to get your next pay, right? But you know that you're not getting another paycheck because you work for yourself as a business owner online or in person, whatever. You need to be able to know that, okay, this is where my creative brain comes on, and I generate ways to figure out good ideas of making money and helping people. And it's not this thing where you make money and you help people. Like, no, like it's a trade-off. Like you help people and therefore you get paid. and then you get paid, and therefore you help more people. And it's just constant evolving effect. That's the big two things really: communication and then the creativity and like getting out of the box. Because, in school they're teaching you focus on this one answer, right? Like in business, there's all different answers. Like for example, when it comes to marketing, right? Like you could have, let's say, a lead magnet funnel. You could have a webinar group coaching funnel. You could have, a call funnel. You could have like, a follower. There's so many different funnels and ways to attract clients to your business. And all of them work. And me personally, I haven't done all of them, but I've tried 3 to 4 and they've all worked for me. Not to say they've all worked the best, but they've all worked to some degree. And in school, a lot of times it's, hey, A, B, C, D, choose one of the answers, and that's it. Or it's, hey, this is how you get to the equation, this is the only way. But it's like, you could have, let's say, a small business with, 100 customers paying you $1,000, every 2 months. For example, let's say you're making about 50 grand a month. That's one way. Or you could also have, 10 clients, more like maybe elite level, like advanced clients, paying for some sort of service that's much more valuable. And maybe you have 10 clients and you're charging them 10 grand each on every 2 months, right? Or 2 months for a 10 grand, investment, right? Now you're making same thing, 50 grand a month. And it's like, you can do all these different ways. You could do it where, you maybe do like some sort of agency service. You find, in the business space, a business that has needing your services or something that you find you could generate more revenue for them with. And maybe you charge them 50 grand for like a one-time package, especially if you're going to triple, quadruple their income or add a couple $100 grand each month. That is one way. And then you only have one client. At the same time, you could do something whereby, and I know plenty of people that do this, let's say you have, a coaching app, right? Or you have some sort of like community. You have 500 people in there and they're all paying you, let's say, I don't know, $100 a month, whatever that comes out to. 500 grand or something, if I'm saying that right. It's like you can do it really any way. But it just comes down to thinking out of the box and realizing that everything is going to work. Don't get shiny object syndrome. Focus on one thing only, execute that, and then transition to the next. And then add on, in the business space, it's called like, I don't know what they call them. But essentially they're like add-ons. Like, okay, you get good at one thing first, then you stack another thing to that. Then now this one takes a back seat. That one, you focus on that skill set, etc. You add them up. It's the same thing with anything, really. And so those are the two things. The next thing I want to talk on is having difficult conversations and asking uncomfortable questions, because that is where the true urgency for people that are desiring change in their life, that's where it's going to show up. If you're beating around the bush, and I've been guilty of doing this before, hey man, like, why didn't you do your workouts or track your food this week? I was busy with work. Even at times where it's like, I had a family member pass away, like, my response to that at times was, hey man, well, do what you can do. Other times it was, hey man, that's all good. But now what I do is, okay, like, regardless of what's going on outside of you, control the one thing you can control the controllable. And so understanding that having these difficult conversations, and also like understanding most of the time, with the exception of things like, like a family member passes, like you're really sick, etc. Most of the time, all the reasons you're not working on your goals and attacking them, with velocity essentially, is because you have something else that's prioritizing your time. And so you need to figure out what is actually the priority. Now, the final thing I just want to touch on after we talked about the first 3 is, fourth and foremost, you need to bet on yourself and go all in. With business, like I said, it's very lonely. You're not going to have people that you can just lean on most of the time to be like, hey man, what are you doing for your business? Cool, man. Like, how's that working? Oh, it's working amazing. Like, usually, no, it's like everybody that nobody's a business owner. So nobody can answer these questions. Okay, how are you going to get help? Oh, you hire a mentor. You have to invest a lot of money to do that. Okay, what happens if you don't have funding, or let's say you cannot become resourceful for a short period of time? During that stint, like, what do? You have to hold yourself accountable. You have to have a community of other people around you. You have to have like-minded individuals. And most importantly, you need to have what I think of as, a mastermind, right? Essentially, in the book, Think and Grow Rich, if you've never read it, as much as people might think like, oh, it's corny, whatever, read that book, because it's not going to give you tactical business advice, but it's going to give you a lot of mindset and perspective shifts in probably ways that you haven't thought about things in the past. Now, in that book, it talks about, assembling a mastermind, which means all of the people that you want to essentially assimilate together and become similar to, or maybe develop skill sets or traits from them. All of these people, you want to combine a piece of him, a piece of them, like their brain, and make it into yours, right? How do you actually do this? Well, first and foremost, this is what I mean when I say like having that community. If you have a group of 10 other business owners doing similar things or slightly different things, but they're making a lot of money, they're successful, some of them maybe like more than others, but you guys are all at different stages, like you guys are going to help benefit each other and all grow. However, if you don't have funding for a mentor, or if maybe like you invest in a mentor and like it's not the best program for you, it doesn't work out well, you need to still find a way to do that. So this is where it comes into play, like, okay, find these real life humans, these people that are successful. For me, like, I'm just being super transparent. Like everybody that I know that's successful when it comes to monetary, they all are business owners and they're all people I've met online with the exception of like one person. Everybody else, my family, my friends, everybody I grew up with, they all work regular jobs. They all are not entrepreneurs. So it's like me going to them with a question around like, hey, like I'm thinking about like, you know, like for example, let's say like a family member or a friend say like, hey, how's the business going, bro? And let's say like they don't understand business that much. It's good, man. It's going well. It's like, that's all you can really say. You can't say, hey man, yeah, like, you know, my funnel is not converting properly and I'm not getting as many opt-ins and, you know, the creatives on my ads are not landing the way they used to. I feel like there's fatigue. It's like, you can't really talk about that stuff to other people because it's like, number one, you're talking just in a different language essentially, but number two, like they haven't, you know, like had that perspective shift of what it takes to be like an entrepreneur or a business owner. And so like they're going to use their perspective of what their employer is telling them or what the people around them are telling, and that's truly their influence. So I'm not saying it's bad, but you know, you need to have that, essentially that mastermind. And so like maybe you don't have these people in person. So for me, what I started to do is I started to like study, not all the information in the world, but like a select few amount of people that I really started to resonate with. People in the digital marketing space, people in the sales space, people that did like, you know, like real estate and investing, for example, people that are like fitness pros, people that are like coaches or like bodybuilders, whatever. And I started to slowly over time, essentially have daily conversations and weekly conversations with them. As simple as that, as weird as that sounds, it was more me just like learning from them. And so, okay, I'm either finding a podcast or a book and I'm reading or listening to that, or I'm watching some sort of YouTube video, or I'm going on to a live podcast with another fitness coach and I'm learning from them and we're conversing, etc. But it's like, I've truly found these people that have inspired me, motivated me, you know, helped me learn faster and cut the learning curve. And I've started to just piece together what I'm learning from them. And now, of course, if you hire a mentor, they're going to help you implement it way faster. But let's say you're in a situation, you know, for me, right? Like I invested into a mentor, it worked out at first, but then a couple things with my business changed. I had to tweak the direction I was going, and then it wasn't as helpful. Now, it was, of course, like great being in the community, but I needed like a different approach. And so for me, I started piecing together different things on my own. And like, that's really where it's like, okay, this is where I have that positivity continue to come from. Like, first and foremost, it's from my faith in God, because it's like, you know, He's going to bless all the works of your hands. That's what it says in the Bible, assuming that you're following His commandments, right? So that means that like everything you're going to do, He is going to make it essentially grow. And so, you know, when you're doing things like consuming the right information, talking to the right people, even if you're not actually talking to them, but you're just, you know, essentially studying them, you're going to learn from these people. You're going to start to have different thought patterns, different belief systems. Your identity eventually is going to change. And over time, what's going to happen that's most important that I want you to take away from this video is you are going to now associate yourself and have the identity as the person you want to be before you even get there. So for me, when I was super skinny, I envisioned in my mind what it would be like to have a six-pack, because like I was skinny growing up, but I didn't have like just a natural six-pack. Like I had decent abs, but it was just because I was so skinny when I was 130, 140 pounds. But when I started to go in the gym and train consistently, in the back of my mind, I always had this vision, this picture in my own head of like what I would actually look like jacked. And of course, I'm still working towards that. But it's like when you have that mental image, now you can start to associate yourself with that. And over time, I shift into that identity. And the same thing happened with my business, you know, where I wasn't seeing a lot of progress for a while, but I was doing the right things. It was frustrating, but I was doing the right things and I was focusing on just the inputs. And then I started to see a bit of traction, and then I started to think of myself as that business owner. And then the business went down a little bit and I struggled for a few months. But during that time, I went as hard as I've ever gone. And, you know, I'm probably going even harder now, but now I'm learning even more because I know I'm not where I want to be. And I'm at the end of each day realizing, okay, I'm not where it is I want to be, but I can't control that. But I can control the inputs. And I know that, I made X number of calls today, or I sent X number of messages, or I posted X number of times on social media, or I spent X number of dollars on ads. I know that that is what the successful person does. And I also spent an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours reading, listening to this, podcast about like this tactic or that. I strengthened like my body with physical training. I did cardio, like I did all the consistent things today. It's just a matter of stacking habits and stacking days. And it's eventually going to be the time where I am this person. But it happened for so long where I just eventually started to actually see myself from my own perspective as that person that was making the type of money I wanted to be making, that had the success, that had the fitness, that had the relationships, that had all the things I wanted. And it wasn't until I did those 4 things that I started to get to that point. Because David Goggins has a really good quote that I really like that says, everybody in their life, they always have a ton of problems. Regardless of if you're a billionaire, if you're homeless, whatever, there's always new problems. And that's the purpose of life, is you're finding ways to overcome these new problems and develop new skill sets, right? Another tangent by Jim Rohn. He says, don't give me a smaller burden, give me broader shoulders. And it's the same thing. It's like, eventually you're going to get stronger over time. You're going to be able to carry all this stuff, right? And so if you're somebody that wants to get to the shoes you haven't stepped into yet, step into them. Like quite literally, like envision yourself as that person, and you'll get there. And again, communication, thinking out of the box, and using creativity. And I forget the other 2, but I just rewatched the video, and I'm telling you, you're going to get value from this video, because it literally, these perspective shifts have changed my life more than any of the skill sets, the tactics ever have. But you're not going to have a frictionless experience unless you identify yourself as that person. Because a fat person going on runs, eating salads, not saying that you need to do that to lose weight, you definitely don't, but that's just what most people think. So we'll just go with that. Those types of people, as soon as they're doing those healthy activities, etc., eating those healthy meals, they're not going to feel like themselves. They're going to feel like a shift in character, which is essentially cognitive dissonance. Like you deep down believe yourself to be one thing, but you're doing the opposite, or you're living a lifestyle of the opposite. And so it's like for a heavyweight person, overweight person, to be identifying themselves as the thin person, then those actions feel real, they feel normal. And then eventually they become that thin, fit person. But if you're not identifying yourself first, then it's going to be hard to acquire the skills, because it's going to feel like you are, let's put it like this. You're going to feel like Arnold Schwarzenegger in the back of that classroom when he was in like high school or whatever. Like those videos, Arnold was like drinking his protein shake in class. He was like the most jacked one there. Everybody else was super small and like didn't look like they worked out. He obviously doesn't fit in there. So it's like, is he going to be thinking during the class about all the stuff that they're learning, or is he going to be thinking about his next meal, his protein shake, his gains, etc.? Probably the latter. And so it's the same thing. It's like, if you don't identify yourself as one way, I don't care how much information you consume and how much learning you do, it's going to be hard to actually believe yourself to be that person. As soon as you make that shift, that's when it's going to go easier. You're not going to have to read as much. You're not going to have to consume as much information. Yes, it is a game of continual learning, lifelong learning, in my opinion. But like, you're not going to feel weird about it. You're going to actually enjoy and love it, because that's the new version. That's the new identity. And it's going to be fun. You're going to get wrapped up into this thing where you have this passion for this newfound passion of, I love learning about these things. I love, getting better, seeing success with my business, with my physique, etc. And it all comes down to identity. So if you shift your mindset around the person you need to be, your identity will then shift. And if that shifts, all the actions, behaviors, thought patterns, belief systems are going to align instantaneously with that. And it will take a bit of time, but eventually you're going to realize, thinking back on it, that you're the person that you wanted to be this whole time. You just didn't see yourself that way. And because you didn't see yourself that way, you didn't take the action. Because you didn't take the action, you didn't get the results. But if you just flip the script and you look from the opposite perspective and you do the things that the version of you would be doing if you already had those things, and you do it long enough, for a couple months, a couple years, eventually you're going to succeed. So that's my rant for today. Hope you guys got major value from this video. Follow me on Instagram at jstroudfit if you want to hear more about achieving your ideal physique. I do have a community. It's very low entry to barrier to entry. It's linked as well below in some of my videos or my Instagram bio. But go on Instagram, message me the word transform if you want to achieve your ideal physique. If you want to burn fat, gain muscle, get into the best shape of your life within the next 16 weeks. Now, I'm very selective on who I let inside the A.Y.I.P program, and it's not for everybody. If you're lazy, if you're not the type of person to take action, if you're not actually serious about getting to the best possible shape and the best version of yourself, then this is not for you. Please do not even reach out because I cannot help. But if you're the person, like the students inside the A.Y.I.P program right now, that's motivated, you're serious, you have discipline, and maybe you don't have perfect discipline, but you have the willingness to become educated on how to stay disciplined long term, then you're going to succeed. So message me the word transform on Instagram, and I'll see if I can help. We'll jump on a quick coaching call. If you want to streamline the process, skip the steps, and this is something you're very serious about, then disregard messaging me. Just literally book a call in the link below, and we'll jump on a one-on-one call. I'll see how I can best help. If I can't even help, I'm not able to help everybody, but if I can, I'd love to welcome you to the team. But that's everything for today's video. Again, follow me on Instagram at JSTRIDEFIT. Save this post and send it to somebody that can benefit from it. Because, bro, what I'm telling you right now is just flowing on the top of my head, number one, which is cool because that just shows like how your skill sets stack up and develop over time. Or now you can start to tell stories without having to, what's this video going to be about, right? And number two, the other thing is, you actually, I don't know what I was going to say, but like you actually take an action on yourself, you're going to succeed. So again, drop me a follow on Instagram, subscribe, like if you like the video, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Stay tuned, and yeah, we're rocking a mustache. See what we can do about it.